Hi, I'm Brian. This video is for you, the future owner of the homestead here at 745 Granite Ridge. We've had a phenomenal time growing stuff here, growing our babies, and I want to take you on a tour of what we've worked on and what was here before us and where things are at. One of the really cool things about the Central Coast is that you can grow stuff pretty much any month of the year, and you can have stuff ripening pretty much every month of the year. Right now it is late May, and we've got let's see, blueberries and oranges going off right now. So right now we are in the lower part of the property, and I'm surrounded by, behind me there is a grapefruit tree, and then there is a pineapple feijoa, and both of those were here before us. Here's a Fuji that was quite young when we showed up. Fujis, you can tell a lot because they're wild. They do not have necessarily an upward habit the way a lot of trees do. Like if I go over to this, there's a Newton up there, Newton Pippin. Let's see, right there. That is very strongly upward trending. Let's see, over here is an apricot. Apricots aren't supposed to grow here, but nobody told this apricot that. We didn't get a phenomenal fruit set this year because the rain was so bad right when the blossoms were going off, but normally we get, I don't know, a few gallons, not a ton, but they're really good. It's a Blinum apricot. Here's a tree we planted. It is a Jonagold. We have planted a ladderless orchard. That doesn't mean you don't need a ladder, but it means you need a ladder less. We've put the bottom story of branches down at about 2 feet, so you can still get underneath it and work on it, get under there, weed it, work on the irrigation, feed it, keep it clear, all that stuff, but still be able to harvest. I'm a pretty tall guy, but I can still get up here, no problem. The thing that's most special about it to me is that my kids can run around and just live in a little food forest, and when something's ripe, or not ripe, sometimes, they can just run around and grab stuff. Also, if you're older and you're rightly concerned about being on a ladder a lot, ladders are pretty dangerous. This orchard minimizes that risk and makes it a much more pleasant experience to work on. Also, you don't have the neck crank thing of where you're up here pruning or thinning or harvesting. It's miserable up on a ladder. So these trees are about having a good time growing food, and we grow way more food here than we could possibly eat. It's a lot of fun to give it away. We've sold it commercially at times. Both things are fun. We're gonna go back here. So we were right in the middle. Now we're moving over to the edge. There's the favorite kids tree right here is a pink pearl apple, and it has a really fun pink flesh that is really great for kids. Again, it's a ladderless deal. These are irrigated either with Netafim drip tubing, which we think really highly of, or umbrellas. This is a Rhode Island greening. It's a really old heirloom variety. Makes a great apple. It's a dual purpose. You can bake it or just eat it. Up in here, in the bottom row here, we have wild Russian ones, Russian blackberries that we just wildcrafted from down by the river here. They appear to be particularly adapted to this area, which makes sense, right? Just growing wild, they are extraordinarily sweet, hardy. They do a great job. The upper row is also a wild variety. They do extremely well. They provide a lot of forage for pollinators. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the honeybees going away. We've got, I don't know if you can see how many bees are cooking around in here right now, but we are loaded up with a lot of different species of pollinators, including honeybees. Honeybees do really fantastically well here. We've left a couple empty hives for you guys if that's something you want to do. I will say it takes a lot of work, but it's extraordinarily rewarding, and the quality of honey here is amazing. We also have, I'll tip up, these enormous eucalyptus trees, which actually are a really important forage source for honeybees on the Central Coast during the winter time. They bloom right when nothing else is, and so they keep bees alive. And if you've got hives, it's pretty awesome to just have some forage for them. They don't make great honey, but if you don't harvest honey during the time that they're blooming, you won't know how it tastes. Although I will say there's, if you haven't heard of Manuka honey, I believe it's eucalyptus based and has some pretty profound medicinal properties. In the middle here is some kind of thornless blackberry that we borrowed from a friend. It's not all that great, but it's very edible. Yeah, I think the thorns are worth it, I'll put it that way. So we're at the northwest corner of the house right now. There is a navel orange here that kicks off in early spring. There's a couple oranges hanging on, but really this one, you gotta harvest them, you know, by April at the latest. There is another navel on the property where that's not true. The oranges get great through about August, so they're really nice to save for when you've got this period in sort of late spring, summer where nothing is going off yet, and they're great right then. They're about the best oranges on the planet. I've never tasted anything better. This is a Fuyu persimmon here. These are the kind of persimmons that you can eat crunchy. They don't have much of an astringent taste. We have skipped over a Santa Rosa plum that's dead downhill of this one, but it is nearly identical to this Santa Rosa plum. There's a pretty good fruit set on this year. You're gonna have great plums. This is an old Newton pippin. It doesn't have much time left on this planet, but it still makes a fantastic apple for saucing and baking. You can eat them, but it's not the highest and best use of that. Here's down there is a little apple tree that it was a Fuji and a deer killed it before I had the property fenced. And I tried grafting a something onto it. The graft is taken, but I don't know where it's gonna be in a couple years. It was sort of a Hail Mary, and if we get something out of it, I'll be thrilled. Down here is a Hakaya persimmon. It is extraordinarily prolific. It's almost too prolific. We've raised hogs here almost every year, and if you time it right so that your hogs are getting big, if you buy them in, you want to harvest hogs between 6 and 8 months typically. So if you count back from December and have your hogs just about ready when the persimmons are ripening, persimmon finished hogs are palpable is the wrong word, maybe it is the right word, palpably sweet from the persimmons. So it's a real treat. People will ask you if you've put sugar in your ground pork. It's really fun. Hogs will do that in general with foods. They'll take on whatever flavor of the food that you feed them. So apples will do that too. If you feed them garbage, they will also taste like garbage, which some people do. This is an orange we planted a few years back. I will admit to not remembering what it is. There's a Valencia, a Caracara, and a Washington navel that we planted. I think some of the labels are still on them. This is another one of the trees we planted right here. This is the world's greatest orange tree. It has a pretty decent set on it this year. It gets better for sure. But yeah, those are a real treat. Yeah, you will enjoy those. Here's another orange tree that we planted. And then we're up at the northern edge of the house. In the background there are a couple lemon trees that we completely neglect. They're just standard lemons, and they give us a few lemons, and they're pretty, but we don't do much with them. So I'm going to walk back. Here's the south-facing part of the house now. Oh, we may as well take a quick walk down to the septic tanks. So this is a funny thing to put in the middle of a food talk, but here are the septic tanks, and they've never given us any problems. Not much to say about them. We just did replace the risers. Yeah, it's nice to have something boring when it comes to septic. Down in this corner of the property, you can see the beehives. That is our southwest corner. The property is exactly 1 acre. There's a survey post just on the other side of that post. In the foreground just a little bit is a little orange tree. There's drip tubing running from that orange down. There's another little orange right there going over to this peach. This peach has never been super happy. We just kind of leave it be, and we typically get a few peaches off it a year, but it's nothing to really write home about. There is a there's actually a pear tree right there from a long time ago when this place was clear cut. It is so shielded by the other trees that we don't get a lot of productivity off it. It was a total mess when I showed up, and I've been trying to prune it back to health. And it does put off a few pears a year, but it's another kind of bonus tree. I guess I should speak briefly about the field that's behind me that starts right here and goes all the way up there. It is extraordinarily useful. We've raised several hundred meat chickens, and I don't know, we probably did, down here, we probably did 10 pigs or so. Pardon me. And it's a great chunk of dirt. You could row crop it if you wanted to, but doing livestock on it has been a really good fit. If you want to learn more about how to do chickens, meat chickens, check out Pastured Poultry Profits by Joel Salatin, or watch the movie, well, to get a taste of it, watch Food Inc. and the movie Fresh. I think you can find both of those on Amazon. There is, hidden back in those trees is a little chicken house, and there is a spot on the door where you can mount an auto closing door, which I highly recommend, called the Pull It Shut, P-U-L-L-E-T, shut. We're not gonna go over there just because it's a box with a roof on it. So we're headed back up north right now. We're passing all the fruit trees that we've gone over. And we're coming up on so we're going past the apricot, past the Jonagold, the grapefruit, the Fuji, the Newton here, which has some nice little apples on it. Let's see if we can, I don't know if you can see. There's a couple little, I think. You see them? No. Got to come back the other way, I guess. Well, there we go. What you're going to want to do when you see a cluster of nice apples like this is find the best one and then carefully break every one off but the one you like. And you want a, oops, did I get that in frame? I can't, yep, just leave the one, and then a minimum of 6 inches between every apple. And if you're way out on a limb, so to speak, like this one's actually okay, but with really young trees, you're gonna wanna, just for the sake of argument, we're just gonna remove all of these right now. The reason is that, yeah, you've lost an apple, but you've saved a branch. And with some of these trees, we're still setting up the architecture, as it were. So far more important to build up the structure and then have a tree that'll be there after you're gone. So this is a walnut that is extremely late blooming, but it is not dead, I promise you. Here are some of the flowers for the walnuts. If you don't mind shooting squirrels with a pellet gun, you can have all the walnuts you want. If you do mind, you don't get any walnuts. This is a stone fruit. I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a, I believe there's a tag on this one. It makes a little patty pan style nectarine, I think. Is it nectarine? Don't quote me. I don't have the same affinity for stone fruit that I do for pomes. In here, I think, is an Arkansas black, but I could be wrong. It's a nice old heritage tree that we planted that's doing really well. We've got two pairs. This one is a Seckel that makes extraordinary fruit. There's a pretty good set this year. Can see some of the pears on there. It's my understanding that you don't have to thin. Let's see, where's another? There's a good one. That you do not have to thin pears, other than for structural reasons. So fire blight is a real thing here. We haven't been hit badly by it, but when you see something that looks like it's been burned, it's really important to clip it off below the burn location. Dip your clean clippers in bleach before you make the next cut. Lots of people kill their trees by cross-contaminating each cut site, and then they're done. This one I had to turn into an open center the other year because, let me see if I can capture it well, because the main leader got it bad, but it seems to have recovered quite nicely, and the fruit set is ridiculous this year, so you should have some great pears. Behind me is a bosque that is doing quite well, quite tall. Maybe taller than I'd like. Might be time to head it soon. And we have not had fire blight on it. Let's see, so we're headed, you know, there's a great opportunity here to head to an otherwise unremarkable spot under this amazing walnut tree here that provides what I think is the world's best shade. Right here is the entire lifeblood of the property, and that's our well. It's been amazing. Throughout the drought, we didn't lose water once. We irrigate fairly heavily here. We have just so much in the way of apples or fruit trees and row cropping and personal use, but it's been really great. It tested out at 6 gallons a minute, which isn't an ag well, but for residential is perfectly adequate. And we've got a 6,000 gallon storage tank just up the hill there. The booster and the irrigation system is in that little pump house right there, where there's an abandoned well that's been capped. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it's dry. I know nothing about it, but it exists. So find time to head down to the garden here. These I put a phenomenal amount of work into one winter. They are double dug beds. I dug down 4 feet by 8 feet, I think 30 inches deep. And then I put in gopher wire, put a wood rim around them, and then amended the soil as I threw it back in. And please take a handful when you come to visit. It is, it's fantastic dirt. It grows really great stuff. So we put in a little fun garden here. If you haven't seen these enormous, they might be a little bit hard to pick out right now, but there are some enormous tomato cages here that are 7 feet tall. This is actually not a big, this one's 6. It is not hard to grow a tomato this big if you know what you're doing. Check out Love Apple Farm for their tomato class. We set you up with some heirloom tomatoes and a couple hybrids. Definitely look at, if you haven't played with tomatoes before, some of these are non-determinate, so they need pruning, and just do a little Google search. You don't have to prune them. They will still make fruit, but if you want the tastiest of the tasty fruit, pruning is fairly mandatory. There's irrigation tubing running for all of these. It also feeds the blackberries. There's a separate irrigation link for the upper part of the orchard. The downhill part, if you think of the north end of the house being a wall, everything south of the north end of the house is fed by a hose-based irrigation system that plumbs into the south side of the house at a faucet. We have a phenomenal amount of If I said phenomenal a lot, well, it's a pretty phenomenal place. Really great number of hummingbirds, which also do some pollination to my understanding. Behind me here is the strawberry patch. Can't you tell? Beautiful strawberries. I didn't have time to plant it this year, but it does really, really well. I would highly recommend the short class on strawberries from the UCSC Farm and Garden Club, and you want to put those in November. So that'll be kind of a fun, that's right when you're moving in, or after you've moved in, you've gotten settled, you want to do something on this place, do yourself a favor and plant, like, this will sound crazy, but plant like 100 strawberry plants up in here, and you and your kids are going to be eating strawberries like you can't believe. And you can get 2 solid years out of the plants. Like I say, plant in November, which you wouldn't think of. Also up top here, corn and tomatoes grow really well here. I did not double dig these. The soil is not super deep, but it still grows great stuff. Let's see, there are a couple more fruit trees here. There's a couple Macintosh, and then I honestly forget what this one is, and it looks like my tag is blown off. But I trust you, or trust me, it is an apple, and it tastes good. So over here is the playhouse, and there's an olive tree. There are, I've lost count of how many olives I planted. There's something like 15 of them. Everybody talks about olives like they're this horrible, phenomenal amount of work. I would urge you to try it out, and also lye if you look it up. Again, I grew up in a Swedish household with lutefisk, which is this lye-cured fish, and it was pretty disgusting, and it would turn your fillings black, and it was gross. Using a little bit of lye for curing olives is no big deal. It just washes off the wax that is on the outside of the olive, and then you rinse it off with a few changes of water, and you get really great olives that you made yourself. So I highly recommend actually harvesting the olives. There's the playhouse, and then we'll take a walk up. Oh, there's strawberry bushes here. These are actually edible. Let's see, none of these are quite ripe yet, so I'm not going to eat one, but they are an edible plant. There's another olive hiding in here as we walk by. Another olive right there. There's a few more hiding in this hedgerow here. Down here, we're at this, there's a road at the top of the property line here. Here we've got a bunch of blueberry bushes, and they are really fun. They don't exactly want to grow here. You have to make a separate, you have to put in new soil. But I promise you that the pain, oops, I'm stuck here. The pain is totally worth it. And we've got bird netting on it right now, so it's hidden a little bit, but sorry for tipping you upside down with the view there. I'll try and get another close-up view, but the bushes are just loaded up, and they're really tasty. So I hope you enjoy them. They do need to get watered every day. We've got an irrigation timer set up so that is happening. One of the things that I spent the most time doing here was getting flat ground. It was more or less one big hillside when I showed up, and so I experimented with a bunch of different ways of doing retaining walls and earthworks and that kind of thing that was sustainable and low impact, and all the fun hippie stuff that I enjoy. So behind me, one thing that was here was these junipers that had these stinging needles where if you stepped on one, you would literally get this little venomous ouch. And so I ripped them off and leveled out this yard here, and then planted these olive trees as a privacy hedgerow. And they're about 3 years old, and they've grown, gosh, some of them are getting on 15 feet. And so the idea there is to have an edible hedgerow where you'll have all the olives you can stand, and have some privacy too from the road. Another area for earthworks was behind me here under the walnut tree. It was probably on a 25-degree slope, something like that, and we wanted a nice little sitting area where you could have a picnic, or sometimes it gets hot here, and be able to chill out in the shade and have a good time. It has a little bit of a wallow in it right now, which my kids have been filling with water in the summertime and having a mud pit. But if you don't have kids or don't want them wallowing and having mud games, then certainly leveling that out and reseeding it would be a good idea. So to accomplish that, I used dry stacked concrete, and this is all recycled stuff that I quarried from down the hill. There was an old barn, and so a lot of this came from that barn. Given the embodied energy of concrete, I felt pretty good about giving it a second use. Ditto over here. That was sort of sloping, and I ended up just moving some dirt, getting some flat land that was able to be cultivated. And then the really big one is up. We ended up making a parking area. Up here, when we bought this place, our realtor actually fell down the hill that was there, and now we've got this pretty level, usable parking area here. And another improvement was that the original fence line ran right behind you, which doesn't help you much. The original fence ran right on the, I can't show you this with the camera, but even with the garage was where the fence was. Everything out here was outside and was covered in these nasty Monterey cypress that hadn't been pruned right, and those cypress ran pretty much right like this, and our property line was actually over there on where the fence line is now. So there was a big effort to replant these hedges, and then I put in a fence and put in these gates behind me. And in progressive stages, we fenced the entire acre, which around here is a big deal for two reasons. The deer will eat everything that I've shown you that is good. And so if you do leave those gates open, you won't have apple trees for long. They'll take back a couple years of growth on a tree in a night. So you don't want to do that. Unless you like feeding deer, then knock your socks off. But yeah, the fence line now runs the entire acre. And so the property line, the northeast corner is sort of halfway up the neighbor's driveway right there. We ended up giving them a small easement because the property line was so muddy that the prior owner, before the people who live there now, had encroached a bit, and in order to just keep things simple and not get lawyers involved past what was necessary, we gave up probably 3 feet by 30 feet or something that's outside the fence line, and in the process got back security with you know, basically everywhere where I'm standing was in contention, and so that's the origin of that easement. The property takes a little jog. There's an angle in the fence right over there, and if you look on the other side of that angle, you'll find a pin. It then goes down into the woods a little bit, and the pin was there, and I had a friend bulldoze this area kind of flatter, and the pin disappeared. But it is, we know that pin and we know the angle, and so you can measure and you'll see that the fence is right on where the pin ought to be. The last corner of the property, let's see, is right by that telephone pole, and you'll find a pin by it, and then as I described earlier, by the beehives you'll find the pin over there, and those are the surveyed corners of the property. The last thing I'll show you is the woodshed. We heated almost exclusively with wood, and that is a couple years worth of storage there. You don't have to use it for wood, but they're 4 foot by 8 foot in general. I think the one on the end there is 6 feet, and in the wintertime just roll the tarps up. In the summertime you've got a kiln The sun in the afternoon comes right in, dries the wood out. I grew up in New England and didn't appreciate the importance of dry wood, but when I started really heating with it here, it became really obvious that every little bit of water that's in your wood, you have to boil off, and you are paying a gigantic energy hit when you burn that water off. Water has the highest heat capacity of almost anything out there. So, and latent heat of fusion, you know, for actually getting it to evaporate. So this system works extraordinarily well. It's possible to get free wood from the neighbors if you're courteous. They're generally happy to have it go. And it's fantastic exercise. So we're up at the top, and I've pretty well walked you through the entire property here. And I really hope that you enjoy and love this place as much as I have. I'll leave you with a quote from Wendell Berry, one of my favorite writers, who I think if you enjoy agrarian stuff, you'll really enjoy him. He said, "The world grows greater when old men plant trees under whose shade they will never sit." And you know, thinking of this place as for your family and for your kids, but also passing it on to other people is a really rewarding thing. You know, there's not many things you can do in this world that have a concrete benefit. And I think planting trees, giving away food, all that stuff really is a net win for everybody and for the creatures that live here. So I hope you really enjoy this place, and take care.